The information in this video is based on the most current information available at the time of production. While Affordable Safety Training works hard to make sure these materials are current, the employer has sole responsibility for compliance with all laws, regulations, and standards. This video is sold with the understanding that AST is not providing professional or legal advice. Employers should have a reliable source for current regulatory information and best practices. Part 1. Introduction.
Good evening. We start sports tonight with a tragic accident in South Bend. A 21-year-old Notre Dame student has died. He was filming the Irish football practice this afternoon when the hydraulic scissor lift he was standing on collapsed in the winds, gusting around 50 miles per hour, according to the National Weather Service.
Scissor lifts are frequently used in construction and general industry to raise workers to an elevated working height. When used properly, this type of equipment is safe, but if proper care is not taken, they can be dangerous. Each year, an average of 8 employees are killed while working on scissor lifts. 40% of these fatalities are from scissor lifts that have collapsed. Tipping over is the most common way to die while working on a lift. The top 10 causes of scissor lift fatalities are: operating on an uneven surface, hitting holes and obstructions while working elevated, climbing or leaning over the rail, overloading the capacity of the lift, electrifying the lift by making contact with electrical conductor, not using outriggers properly, making body contact with electrical conductors, operating in inclement weather, inexperienced or untrained operators, and failing parts or components.
Part 2. Scissor lift basics.
The American National Standards Institute classifies aerial lifts, or mobile elevated work platforms, into 2 groups. Group A consists of mobile work platforms that move vertically, but stay within the tipping lines of the machine. Scissor lifts are an example of Group A mobile work platforms. Group B consists of aerial lifts where the platform extends past the machine's chassis. A standard boom lift is an example of a Group B mobile elevated work platform. Each group is divided into 3 types. Type 1 mobile work platforms can only be driven in the stowed position. A vertical tower is an example of a Type 1 elevated work platform. Type 2 work platforms can be driven while elevated, but can only be controlled from the bottom operator panel. A mobile stock picker is an example of a Type 2 device. Type 3 mobile elevated work platforms can be driven while elevated, and are controlled from the work platform. An articulating boom lift is an example of a Type 3 mobile work platform. There are many different types of scissor lifts. They are usually classified by their source of power, and lift height. The most commonly used types are electric, gas, propane, or diesel-powered. Scissor lifts can also be designed for specific work environments. Lifts that are intended for use on finished floors or surfaces usually have smooth tires. Scissor lifts designed for construction sites and uneven surfaces will have rough terrain tires. Some scissor lifts have extending platforms that help operators get closer to their work area. The employer must select the type of scissor lift that is appropriate for the job. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration classifies scissor lifts as a mobile scaffold. Employers must comply with the applicable parts of Subpart L, which are the regulations that cover the use of scaffolding in the workplace. The most important safety device on any scissor lift is the operator's manual. The manual contains critical information, such as lift capacity, allowed occupancy, maximum wind speed, required inspections, safety rules, and training requirements. A legible copy of the operator's manual must be present on every lift, and each employee must be familiar with the contents. If there is no operator's manual, the scissor lift may not be used. The maximum capacity of a scissor lift will be clearly marked on the equipment. Do not exceed this load rating. Remember to add the weight of tools or supplies when calculating the work load. Lifts with extendable platforms will have a separate load rating for extended and retracted configurations. An overloaded scissor lift is one of the most common causes of collapse. Know the rating, and be careful not to exceed it. Scissor lifts also have maximum occupancy requirements. Most lifts only allow up to 2 people on the platform, and only 1 person at a time on the platform extension. Larger lifts can carry more people and heavy equipment. Scissor lifts are delicately balanced. It is possible to stay below the weight capacity, and still tip it over, if the workers on the platform are not balanced correctly. Lifts should only be operated when the platform is level. The incline toggle on the control panel is for driving a lowered scissor lift up steep grades. It is not for raising the platform on inclines. If the scissor lift must be used in a location that is not level, use a type that has its own leveling system. If there is a loss of power, scissor lifts can be lowered to the ground using the manual control valve. This should only be done in an emergency, and in coordination with the workers on the lift. Types of aerial lift users. Occupants work on aerial lift platforms, but do not operate the vehicle. Occupants must be trained how to work safely on the platform, and how to operate the vehicle in an emergency. An operator is a person who is qualified to control the movement of a mobile elevated work platform. Operators must be trained on inspection, application, use, maintenance, and operation of the aerial lift. A supervisor monitors operator performance and supervises the work. Supervisors must be trained on work platform selection, rules and regulations, hazards and protection methods, and the importance of having the operator's manual on the vehicle. Mobile elevated work platform selection. The employer must evaluate the job requirements and work site conditions to determine which type of aerial lift will safely accomplish the task. It is important to select the correct vehicle, so employees can accomplish their work without having to push the limits of the vehicle. The selection process should consider required elevation. How high does the worker need to reach? How close does the operator need to be to the work? Horizontal outreach. What is the required horizontal outreach? What is the height of the object that needs to be reached over to access the work? Are there any obstacles on the ground that limit the position of the vehicle? Required capacity. How many people need to be lifted? What is required to be on the platform, in addition to personnel? What is the maximum expected load of people, tools, and equipment? Support and driving conditions. What are the ground conditions on the job site? What terrain will the machine be traveling and elevating on? Will the ground hold the weight of the vehicle? Are there any tunnels or chambers beneath the support surface? What is the slope and condition of the support surface? Hazardous atmospheres. Has a qualified person determined if any atmospheric hazards exist? Are the vehicles rated for this hazard? Have employees been trained on the hazards and provided proper equipment? Indoor work areas. Is buildup of vehicle emissions a concern? Is there enough lighting? Are there any obstacles that need to be maneuvered around? Will the floor support the load? What other work is going on in the area? Access to the work area. How will the vehicle be delivered? What is the access point? Are there any obstacles, such as stairs or ramps, that need to be maneuvered around? Are there pedestrian or vehicle traffic hazards? Will the vehicle be moved while in an elevated position? The employer will consider the hazards and circumstances of the work area and select the mobile elevated work platform best suited for these conditions.
Part 3. Scissor lift hazards.
When performing work on a lift, there are many different types of hazards that employees should be aware of. Workers must be protected from falling at all times. Most scissor lift guardrails are sufficient for fall protection, provided they meet OSHA requirements. Harnesses may also be used for fall protection, but they should only be used to prevent a fall. Most scissor lifts are not strong enough to arrest a fall. They will most likely collapse from the heavy force applied when the employee is caught in their harness. Work with your supervisor to determine the appropriate fall protection for the job task. When working aloft, precautions must be taken to prevent objects from falling. If there is a risk of falling objects, isolate the area below the scissor lift. Use tool lanyards, storage containers, or other methods to prevent objects from falling from the platform. If employees must enter the hazard area, they should wear hard hats. Scissor lifts use pressurized hydraulic fluid to operate. Pressure leaks can cause employee injury, exposure to hazardous chemicals, slip hazards, and fire hazards. Contacting live electrical components is a common cause of death or injury. Employees must be informed of all the electrical hazards in the work area. Maintain a distance of at least 10 feet from any live sources of electricity. When working outside, pay special attention to any power lines in the area, and stay clear. When using portable electric tools on a scissor lift, make sure they have been inspected and are in good condition. An insulation failure can electrify the entire lift. All portable electric equipment should be double insulated or properly grounded. When raising, lowering, or moving a scissor lift, a worker could get crushed between the lift and another object. Make sure there is enough space between the platform and the overhead. Keep your body inside the frame of the platform while moving the lift. Never lean over the guardrails as it is moving. You could get trapped and seriously injured. An employee could get pinched or caught in the supports as they are raised or lowered. Pinching can also occur when operating the gates, guardrails, or extending the platform. Getting struck by a vehicle is a common cause of scissor lift collapse. If working in an area with vehicle traffic, take some precautions to prevent collisions. Isolate the work area. Use fences, barricades, or flaggers to warn and direct traffic. Enclosed workspaces may cause buildup of dangerous atmospheric conditions. Equipment exhaust is a frequent cause of atmospheric hazards. Employees who work in hazardous locations require special training, tools, and equipment.
Part 4. Scissor lift operations.
A risk assessment must be performed whenever aerial lifts are used in the workplace. The risk assessment must include an identification of the task, which includes the location and timing, the evaluation and selection of the proper mobile elevated work platform for the work conditions. This analysis should include the task to be completed, constraints of the work area, ground conditions, site access, and proximity to other workers and the public. An assessment of the risks associated with the use of aerial lifts. The risk factors include the work location, the type of work platform, the people employed, and the materials and equipment to be carried. A designation of appropriate control measures. These should protect employees from the identified risks. Procedures, special precautions, and protective equipment must be implemented as necessary. An identification of safe work practices. The risk assessment results must be used to identify safe work procedures and plans for contingencies. A rescue plan must be developed to address an equipment failure and a fall from the platform. Rescue options include self-rescue, assisted rescue by others in the work area, and rescue by emergency services. This risk assessment must be communicated to all entities involved in the work. The risk assessment should be completed before work commences and evaluated periodically during long-term jobs. Scissor lift operators must be trained and authorized by the employer. The training must be conducted by a person who is qualified in the subject matter, can recognize the hazards associated with scissor lifts, and understands the procedures to control or minimize the hazards. The training will be completed in 2 parts. The first part is formal training that covers the regulations, hazards, and procedures required to operate a scissor lift. The second part consists of hands-on training on the type of lift the employee will be operating. No one may operate or perform work on a lift without completing the required training. Before starting work on a scissor lift, create a work plan and discuss it with employees. This plan should include the tasks being performed, any potential hazards, required safety precautions, the methods for warning people in the area, and how to isolate the work area, if necessary. If working outside, keep an eye on the weather. Snow, heavy rain, and high winds are all conditions that could make working on a scissor lift unsafe. If there is a chance of bad weather, check the forecast before work starts, and periodically throughout the day. All workers must know the maximum wind speed that is safe for the type of lift they are working on. Inspect the work area and surfaces for hazards. Potholes, cracks, and other surface conditions can cause a lift to tip or bounce, which can throw the worker from the platform. Check the area for obstructions, electrical components, and other items that may be a hazard to workers. Scissor lifts must be inspected prior to each work shift. The operator's manual will have a specific list of items that are required for the inspection. Check the structural components to make sure they are free of cracks and damage. Inspect the pins and chain hooks to make sure they are not malformed or broken. Make sure the controls are connected and in good condition. The hydraulic systems should be free of leakage. Check the electrical system and make sure the insulation is in good condition. The wheels and tires must be properly inflated and must be free of flat spots. The safety mechanisms must work, and all the required warning labels must be on the equipment and legible. If there is an annual inspection marking on the vehicle, make sure it is current. Be sure to complete all the inspection criteria that is listed in the manual. If the scissor lift does not pass the inspection, tag the controls, and remove it from service. Once the scissor lift passes the inspection, an operational check must be completed. The required checks will be listed in the operator's manual. They will include the top and bottom control systems, safety systems, drive controls, elevation controls, brakes, and the alarm and warning systems. Complete all the operational checks, in accordance with the owner's manual, before starting work on the lift. When entering and exiting a scissor lift, maintain 3 points of contact. Make sure the area is clear of obstructions. Alert people in the area that the lift will be moving, and make sure the warning alarm is working. Drive slowly and carefully. Use the incline mode to drive up and down slopes. Watch out for vehicles and pedestrians. Before raising the lift, make sure it is on a flat and level surface. If included on the lift, set up the outriggers to help stabilize the platform. If there is a risk of falling objects, isolate the work area. Look for overhead obstructions, such as piping and electrical wires. Inform the workers in the area that you are raising the platform. Be careful, the platform will rock a little when the motor is energized, so hold on. As the platform is going up, keep all body parts and equipment inside the guardrails, so they are not caught, crushed, or pinched on nearby objects. While working at height, keep both feet securely on the platform. Never use boxes, or other objects, to raise your working level. Do not lean out over the guardrails. If you need to get closer to a work area, use the platform extension. Work slowly and carefully. Use tool lanyards to prevent tools and equipment from falling. Place loose items in storage containers. Do not take items onto the platform that are not required for work. Avoid moving the scissor lift while the platform is elevated. This is a common cause of serious accidents. Lower the lift to the base position, move the lift, and raise it back up to the required working height. Before lowering the lift, check to make sure the work is complete, and that items on the platform are secure. Retract the platform extension, so it is not caught on anything. Notify workers in the area the lift is being lowered. Watch for obstructions as the platform goes down. When the work is completed, remove all tools and equipment from the lift. Make sure that the operator's manual is in place. Move the lift to a safe storage location. Remove the key, to prevent unauthorized operation. Clean up any remaining equipment and markers, and return the area to its normal condition. Employers must have a rescue plan that covers equipment failure, and a fall from the platform. This plan must return a fallen, or stranded, worker to the ground safely, and quickly. For equipment failure, there are two major options. The operator can switch to the backup control system, and lower the platform to the ground. If the backup controls do not work, the secondary manual emergency descent controls can be utilized, to release the hydraulic pressure, and lower the platform. Fall protection is required on all Group B work platforms. The employer must have a plan, in writing, that explains the methods for rescuing a person who has fallen from the platform. There are three main options for rescue. Self-rescue utilizes special equipment that allows the employee to rescue themselves. Assisted rescue relies on other employees in the work area for rescue. This may involve using the bottom controls to lower the platform, or using another elevated work platform to reach the fallen worker. If another vehicle is used for rescue, a qualified supervisor must conduct a site review, and develop a specific plan for use of the vehicle for rescue. Technical rescue involves using emergency services to perform rescue. Employers who rely on emergency services must verify they have the knowledge and equipment to perform the rescue. Emergency services must also be available, and able to arrive in an appropriate amount of time. If the platform becomes entangled, the employees must be removed from the platform, before any attempts are made to free the vehicle. Vehicles that have tipped must be stabilized, and secured, before rescue is attempted.
Part 5. Summary.
Scissor lifts should only be operated by trained, and authorized, employees. You must be familiar with the contents of the operator's manual. Know the capacity, occupancy limit, and maximum wind speed, for the lift you will be working on. Scissor lifts should be operated on level surfaces. Use warning signs, barriers, or other methods, to keep traffic away from the lift while in use. Before each shift, inspect the scissor lift, and perform operational checks. Take appropriate precautions to prevent falling objects. Never stand on a box, or railing, to raise your working height. Do not use scissor lifts in bad weather. If you have any questions, or concerns about safety, stop work, and ask your supervisor. Thank you for your attention, and please remember to work safely.